We know that you're a big Dabo Sweeney fan. So I almost smirked a few times when you brought the name up. I know
Sorry.
you're a big Dabo Sweeney fan. And this is actually simulcasting on the Clemson channel.
Oh, goody.
Clemson fans with us. Good to see all of them. Where would you rate this series, this rivalry on the tote board of Florida State priorities?
This season or just in general?
In general.
Definitely third. It will, and this is the thing, and Big Game James has talked about this before, and I agree with him 100%. It will never be on the level of Florida State, Florida, and Florida State, Miami. Those two, I will still argue that Florida State, Miami, even despite both teams being down right now, is the best rivalry in the last 40 seasons of college football. I think the argument can be made on that one. And I think Florida State, Florida, in that period in the 90s was arguably the best of all time, the best decade of a rivalry of all time. But if you tell most Florida State fans, hey, would you rather beat Miami, Florida, or Clemson? A very small number of them are going to say Clemson as far as the group. But I think that's also because of the fact that right now Clemson is – I would argue, I would say Clemson has regained their spot as the best team in the ACC this season. I think that game against Syracuse, I think they're going to expose Syracuse. I think Syracuse is a team that hasn't played Wake yet, hasn't played NC State yet, hasn't played Florida State yet, hasn't played Clemson yet. So I think Syracuse could easily end up with 3 losses before it's all said and done. So I think Clemson is right now the best team that the ACC has to offer. That's not saying that much because I still think they get beat in the college football playoff. So, yeah, I would say it's probably Miami, Florida, and it depends on what part of the state you're from. If you're from South Florida like me, you hate Florida a little bit more because you know more people who went to Miami, you grew up with more Miami fans like we did here in South Florida. If you're from the Tampa, Orlando area where it's a more of a Gator concentrated area, you probably hate Miami a little more because you grew up around more people who are Gator fans or people who went to the University of Florida. Clemson, I would say, is the second. It's the biggest Atlantic Division rival we have. I will give you that much. But as far as that, it is a distant third behind Miami and Florida.
Well, I think the big distinction here is, and I think you'll back me up on this, is that Florida State versus Miami, Florida State versus Florida, those games will never go away in regards to the importance because of the obvious in-state connection and rivalry, even on bad seasons. The whole Clemson dynamic of a series and that being important was created by both teams being good in the same division and owning that conference and battling for the conference title. It was just totally circumstantial based on the results and the performance on the field.
Well, let's not forget, if you look back at the history of the series in the first 30 years that Florida State has been a member of the ACC, Clemson didn't win until the 12th meeting in the 2003 season. That was the first time. So Florida State won the first 11 games the teams played that Florida State was a member of the ACC. It went back and forth for a while. I think they won in 03, they won in 05 and 06 and 07. We won in 04, we won in 08. I think they won again in 09. We won in 10. I think they won in 11. Then we won 12, 13, 14, and then they've won since. So, and with the exception of, I think it's 17. I think we're 17 and 12 with them since joining the ACC. Obviously, because we didn't play in the 2020 season. But I think that's one of the things. I think right now Clemson has been put on that level because, like you said, Clemson is the national power, and it's also the fact that we haven't beat them. Yes, we've lost 3 in a row to NC State, but we beat them in 2019, so we at least have a more recent win against them. Boston College, we beat them this year. Louisville, we beat them this year. Wake Forest, we beat them for the last time in the 2019 season. No, excuse me, I apologize, 2018 season as well in that game. Syracuse. We beat Syracuse last year. Sorry, I just had to quick math in my head. Yeah, so we beat Syracuse last year, and I'm drawing a blank on who's our other team in the Boston College, Wake Forest, Clemson, Syracuse, NC State. Who's our other Atlantic Division team?
Wake, NC State, Syracuse, Boston College, Clemson, Florida State, Wake, Boston College, NC State, Syracuse,
Louisville.
Yeah,
so we covered that. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. So we've at least had some recent success. We have not beat Clemson since the 2014 season. So that's why it's kind of the anxiousness of us beating Clemson. If Wake Forest beats us 3 more times in a row, Wake Forest might become a bigger rival just because we need to beat them. That's where the question comes into play. If we beat Clemson this year, does the rivalry kind of go down a little bit on that one? So that's where I think it comes into play. But as far as if you're saying, looking at Florida State's schedule of the teams we play every season, which would be the Atlantic Division, the 7 Atlantic Division teams, 6 Atlantic Division teams, Miami and Florida. So out of those 8 teams, Miami, Florida, Clemson down here.